consultor norte-americano Jon Orcutt, que foi diretor de políticas públicas no Departamento de Transportes da Prefeitura de Nova Iorque, esteve em São Paulo batendo um papo com os ciclistas na sede da associação Ciclocidade e nos concedeu uma entrevista. Ele contou como o tráfego nas ruas de Nova Iorque está melhorando com o programa Vision Zero.
Well, the idea of Vision Zero is that traffic crashes are not random occurrences. They are preventable occurrences that public policy and street design can change. So the city is remaking streets to slow traffic down. It's giving people more space in intersections so there are less conflicts between people and vehicles. And there's also a lot of changes in the law. There's higher penalties for drivers who hit people. There's tougher rules for taxis who have a bad driving record. There are places where the speed limit is being lowered. In fact, most of the city, the speed limit is being lowered from 50 kilometers to 40 kilometers.
Jon Orcutt disse que o caminho para a mobilidade urbana sustentável depende de lideranças com vontade de fazer transformações nas cidades.
Well, I think it's a very long-term process. It took us, decades to build ourselves into this situation where cars take up most of the street and most of the outdoor part of the city, and it's going to take a long time to recover that. But I think when you see leaders like Mayor Bloomberg or Mayor de Blasio or Mayor Haddad here in Sao Paulo, that's what it really takes, is strong leadership who understands that we can't keep doing the same things, and to improve cities and make them more attractive. Cities are very efficient places for people. We use less energy, we don't travel as much when we're close to the things we need to do. But we need to make the cities livable so that people stay and don't spread out too much. So a lot of it is just redefining space. So like the bike lane program in Sao Paulo is starting to create space for bicyclists, starting to create space for buses. The street system is a big public resource and we need to use it more efficiently. And you need to use it to improve the quality of life. And so that means not filling every single square meter with cars, but having some public space, having efficient transport like buses and bikes. And the other thing is more stronger planning, so that when you're building high-rise buildings, you have public transport capacity near there. You have friendly streets for walking and bicycling to get to public transport or to make short trips. And so then you can start to give people more choices about how they travel. It's not just cars for every trip, it's the means of transportation that's most appropriate for a short trip, which could be bicycling, could be walking, it could be public transport, and maybe it's driving for some trips, but then at least you have the choice and not every single trip for just a few kilometers is in the car.
Jon Orcutt falou do processo de implantação das ciclovias e das bicicletas compartilhadas em Nova Iorque. A experiência por lá também foi polêmica.
It's still a work in progress, and as I said, I think these changes are very long range. And we had a big fight in the city over bikes and bike lanes in the first few years when we started. In 2007, the mayor declared that we were going to build 200 new miles of bike lanes and really build a good network. And we did the 200 miles, and then we're doing anything from 15 miles to 60, 70 miles a year after that. So it's still being built out. It was a conflict in some neighborhoods. It wasn't really a big fight, but the press loves a fight, so the press tried to make it into a bigger fight than it was and made it more of an issue. So it was interesting because once the press started paying attention, then like the university institutes and people who measure what people think started asking survey questions, and they found out that New Yorkers supported the bike lanes 2-to-1. And there's still local debates and things over certain bike lanes, but now it's more collaborative, and people are saying, okay, when are the bike lanes coming to our neighborhood? And when are we going to get some of the bigger protected bike lanes? And we followed the bike lane network development with a big public bike system. It's 6,000 bikes in the center of the city now. It's expanding, starting to expand next year. It'll be 12,000 bikes in a few years. And that's really popular, and so you get all this media coverage, celebrities riding city bike, politicians riding city bike, journalists riding city bike and writing about it. TV news people riding city bike and getting on the news. So that's become the conversation changed a lot when bikes became more accessible to everybody because there were all these bikes for people to use. And the bike lanes were already there, so it was safe for people to try.
Jon Orcutt indicou quais são as melhores estratégias para incentivar e promover o uso da bicicleta nas cidades.
You need a bike lane network where people feel safe so they can use it. It needs to be connected. It can't just be some bike lanes on streets where it's convenient for the city to take some space. You need to be able to get from A to B by bike on the network, or pretty close to where you're going on the network. But then the other way that cities are getting a lot of people on bikes quickly once they've built a network is big public bike systems. And Paris is the leader. Paris has over 20,000 bikes. It's a city of maybe 2.5, 3 million people, so that's a lot of public bikes. And other places like New York are now really getting huge numbers of people on bikes just because we have the bike lanes, now we have the public bikes people can come out and use. And then there's a dynamic. Once more people start to ride, other people see them riding, drivers start to understand what it means to be near bikes, so it gets safer for everybody, and more people can ride. We call that safety in numbers, and it's kind of a virtuous circle where more people ride, so more people see that it's safe to ride, and then more people ride. And so I think you just need to start somewhere. And one of the things I think that's important too is to focus and get early success. So if you want to build a good network, don't try to put it everywhere all at once. Do a really good network in one place where you know people will use it on bikes. Put the public bikes there too, and then build out from where you've already seen success. And then you don't get these arguments about, oh, we have bike lanes, but nobody's riding in them.
Jon Orcutt citou também bons exemplos de mobilidade urbana pelo mundo.
Well, there are a lot of different examples in different parts of the world. In London, for example, you have to pay a very steep fee to drive a car into the center of the city. And that's cleared out a lot of room for additional buses and some cycling strategies, though I think they still need to do more work there. In South America, there's some great success stories with bus travel, and that's been an example for the world. It started here in Brazil, in Curitiba. Bogotá did really huge system Transmilenio of bus rapid transit and attracted a huge number of people to public transport that way by making it efficient and making it work. Really reduced the traffic chaos in the city because there had been so many buses going all over before they created a real system. And so I think those kind of examples are moving around the world. I mean, you have all the Western European examples where you get 20 or 30 or 40% of people riding bikes in some of the smaller cities. But even in a city like Berlin in Germany, you have a great public transport system, but also 10% of all the trips are on bike because they've created a good set of spaces for people to ride them. And so then I think they're the cities that are starting more lately, like Paris, New York, that are doing things with public space, more safety, bicycling, and more bus lanes as kind of an integrated street strategy to really say, look, we've left the streets here for decades, we haven't done anything interesting with them, and it's one of the biggest public resources there are. Let's think about streets creatively. Let's think about streets as the places where we live as city dwellers, and let's think about them as ways to really green our city and make a beautiful city and a place to be. I also think there's some really great examples I've seen recently, like the pedestrian network in downtown Sao Paulo is a great resource, and I think it's something you could build on and expand, maybe put it in other centers. You see how crowded it gets. People like to be in those places, and the businesses do well there. We did that in Times Square in New York. It's now pedestrian space, and the economy of that area has gone way up. It's been a really valuable thing to do for the local businesses. In Buenos Aires too, they pedestrianized the whole city center just a few years ago, and it's working really well, and people like it.
Jon Orcutt afirmou que priorizar a qualidade de vida é a forma de pensar planejamento urbano hoje no mundo.
Yeah, I think what's happened is in the 20th century, there's a lot of different pieces to urban planning. There's thinking about housing, thinking about services and schools, thinking about spatial relationships between things, and a lot of those elements or disciplines in city planning were pushed aside by traffic engineering in most of the 20th century. So all we thought about for urban planning was, how do we get more cars through here? And so now what's starting to happen around the world is traffic engineering is still important, but it has to live alongside thinking about open space for people, quality of life for people, safe walking for kids to schools, public transport efficiency, thinking about using our streets efficiently, and the economic benefits of having a beautiful, attractive city. People know that. We've studied that in New York, and the places where we've improved the balance between people and bikes and public transport and cars, they're doing better economically. People are attracted to those places. So if you have a store or a restaurant or even an office building that you're renting space in, those places are outperforming the places that are just choked with traffic now.